Zeke Draker was labeled the shame of his legendary Dragon Slayer family. A man born into greatness who failed to awaken and could not use aura. Branded useless, he was exiled without hesitation, cast aside by the very bloodline meant to protect him. That rejection became the fuel for his life's obsession, which is surpassing everyone who looked down on him. In his relentless pursuit of strength, Zeke obtained an ancient relic powerful enough to catch the Emperor's attention. Seeing him as a threat, the Emperor sent his best elimination squad to hunt him down. Zeke tried to flee, but they caught up to him. Facing certain death, Zeke's will to live erupted. He pushed past his limits, single-handedly slaughtering the elite squad, though the battle left him fatally wounded. As his life faded, a mysterious ancient power answered his resolve and offered him a deal. Zeke accepted without hesitation, and when he opened his eyes, he found himself reborn in his younger body, given a second chance to rewrite his fate. Zeke finds it so hard to believe that he is back in the past because the feeling of getting stabbed multiple times still remains in his head. After looking around for a minute, he figures out that he is back in the Cradle, which is a training institution for the Draker household. Apparently, the Draker family is one of the 3 great households. One of the family members, Taken Draker, is known as the hero who saved the continent after slaying the evil dragon Bahamut 1,000 years ago. Tarakon's descendants were the ones who later founded the Draker household that still stands to the present day. There is a definite reason for it, but it is believed that everyone in the Draker bloodline had the blessings of aura because they were his descendants. Because of this, they were always able to awaken their aura and become knights. All except for Zeke. Zeke is chilling on his bed when he suddenly spots a strange virtual window informing him that the administration system is starting. Zeke immediately gets off the bed, and while he is still confused about what is happening, the system says that the soul of the Awakener has been confirmed. Apparently, his soul received the will of the Elder Dragon and has completely merged with it. The system welcomes him on board before activating the status window, so that Zeke can properly see what is on board. On the status window, Zeke is classified as a low-rank administrator with his class set as healer. There are a bunch of skills surrounding his class like healing, composed mind, vigor recovery, and heightened senses. There are also regular skills like precise stab and critical strike, but they are all on the beginner's level. It turns out that there is also a draconic skill available for him, but he can't access it yet because he needs 10 points to do this, and he currently has no points to spend. Zeke is impressed with the whole window thing because it is easy for him to navigate, just like in video games. His mind catches on to the draconic part there, and he remembers what his master usually told him about ancient people and the fact that they categorize themselves into classes depending on what they are good at. Each of these classes would then go ahead to train in a specialized technique called skills. While he was still training under his master explained to him that he could use the healing skill because he was under the healer's class. Back then, his master had no pity for him as she almost trained him to death. Since the system already classifies him as a healer, he decides to test it out to see if what the status window is saying is the truth. Apparently, he became a true healer in his past life after his Ether Hall was unlocked. This time around, Zeke realizes that the Ether Hall is already unlocked, and it finally dawns on him that he might have left his past life. But for some reason, he returned to the past with all of his skills and memories intact. Zeke is pleased to see this because he is in a better position compared to who he was in his life before. Zeke knows that he has to figure out how things work if he wants to maximize the skills he has. Before he gets the chance to do this, his attendant knocks on the door, asking if he is there. Zeke stays quiet to deceive the dude, but the attendant is wise enough to know that Zeke is just messing around. On the other hand, Zeke is freaking out because of the status window. He is scared that his attendant will walk in and start asking him questions about the status window. When the attendant realizes that Zeke is not answering, he ignores him and makes his way into the room. The attendant, Decker, expresses his disappointment that Zeke hasn't gotten himself ready just yet. Zeke heaves a sigh of relief when he realizes that Decker can't see the status window. Since he is out of the danger zone, he asks Decker what preparation he is talking about. Decker lets off a scary aura when Zeke asks this question because he believes that Zeke is just messing around with him. Apparently, in his past life, Zeke has always been scared of Decker, and even though he has the mind of a 32-year-old dude, Zeke can't escape the fear that is already engraved into his body. Before he starts himself, the system activates the skill, Composed Mind, and all of his nervousness immediately vanishes. It turns out that the Composed Mind class skill allows the user to remain calm in whatever situation, no matter what is going on. Zeke is pleased that the Composed Mind skill is a passive one, and he finally gets to reply to Decker. Since he's now calm, Zeke has remembered what Decker is talking about, and it is an evaluation test event called Pancration. Apparently, all Drakers are expected to go through the training system Cradle, which starts the moment they hit 7 years old. For the next 5 years, they go through a series of training, and the instructor is able to evaluate their capabilities through swordsmanship competition and a combat of pancradin without rules. Basically, the instructors are the ones who pick the opponents. But there are situations where the students pick who they want to fight, and they both have to give their consent because there is no rule whatsoever. There are those who come out of the fights with injuries or those who even die in the process. However, the children always make sure to give it their all since the competition is what determines the class in which the students are placed while they are in the academy. Moments later, Zeke joins his mates at the arena where they meet the head instructor, Mark. Mark lets them know that they have gotten to the last day of evaluation already, and he urges them to prepare themselves. While standing in the crowd, Zeke can hear his cousins making fun of him for coming to the evaluation test again, even though he suffered severe humiliation in the past one. Without wasting time, Mark calls on the 2 students who will be going first. The fight begins, and in under a minute, it is already over with the victory going to a dude named Aaron. While watching, Zeke remembers that he was always afraid of the students in his past life, but now that he has regressed, they're nothing to him. Minutes later, Zeke and his opponent, Leon Conrad, get on stage. Apparently, Lion has always been his opponent for the past couple of years, and Lion is already boasting about what he is going to do to Zeke again. In the past, Lion was always making sure he got Zeke to beg for his life before letting him go. Since Lion always ends up as his opponent every year, Zeke has come to the conclusion that he is always pulling some strings behind the scenes. His household doesn't really care because they believe Zeke should be able to overcome such little tricks before he can properly call himself a dragon slayer. Zeke always wanted to just fall down and die because he couldn't believe a scumbag like Leon was his cousin. Apparently, in his past life, the 4 siblings from the direct bloodline never had the chance to meet. But there were always loads of his cousins who were more than ready to bully him. Before the fight begins, Leon starts trash-talking Zeke, saying he is such a dumb but brave dude to have stepped into the ring with him again, given what happened to him the last time. Before Lion's words can get to Zeke, the composed mind skill is activated, immediately putting Zeke in a calm state of mind. Zeke then finally gets the chance to talk back, but Leon still doesn't take him seriously. He pats him on the head, asking him what he plans to do while also calling him an inferior person. This makes Zeke mad, and he punches Lion while subconsciously activating the critical strike. Leon crashes to the ground in pain, screaming about his face. Zeke only wanted to knock the dude out, but because he can't control his abilities just yet, he ends up punching him in the face. The instructor scolds Zeke for attacking when he hasn't started the match, and Zeke defends himself, saying everyone should always be ready on the battlefield. Zeke lets off a terrifying bloodlust while saying this, and even the instructor felt it. Leon manages to pull himself together, and he decides to act cool, telling the instructor that he is free to start the test. Leon is pissed off already, and he lets Zeke know that he is about to die, but Zeke casually tells him that he's getting the wrong idea, because he is actually the one in danger. Just then, Mark starts the game, and Leon dashes towards Zeke. Leon throws a punch at Zeke, and Zeke was initially scared until the punch landed, and he realized that it didn't hurt one bit. Zeke already knows Leon's moves, and he waits for the counterattack. The moment Zeke activates his counter-strike without landing it, he leaves himself open for Lion to grab him. Leon grabs him in a position where he is sure that he is going to win. However, in the blink of an eye, Zeke is sitting on the ground with no injuries from what just happened. Even the instructor is left in shock because he doesn't want to believe that Zeke, as a 12-year-old kid, has such impressive combat sense. Apparently, the moment Leon dodged Zeke's attack and tried to take him down, the instructor already believed that Lion was going to win, but Zeke managed to punch Leon's chin to get himself out of his grasp. The instructor believes that Lion is to blame for thinking he had won the fight, but at the same time, Zeke was composed to regain the situation even though his counter-strike failed. The instructor is left in awe, wondering if this is really the Zeke Draker that he knows. The fight starts again, and Leon soon starts receiving some real punishment from Zeke. Leon screams in pain, wondering why Zeke's punches are so painful, even though he is small. Leon gets mad and goes on a rampage, but Zeke activates the heightened sense of skill to properly see how Lion is moving. Zeke smiles when he realizes that he now has his abilities under control. He is also able to use the Ether Hall. And the moment Leon foolishly opens himself up, Zeke grabs him and slaps him to the ground. Zeke doesn't stop there as he continues punching him like trash. Zeke asserts dominance by beating Leon so badly that fear starts creeping through the watching students. After he is done letting off steam, Zeke gets on his feet to address his bullies from his past life, telling them to stop watching and get into the ring with him. Annoyed by what Zeke just said, another of his cousins, Jake and Vark, decides to choose Zeke as his next opponent. Zeke agrees to this, but lets him know that he is not interested in fighting him alone because the fight would be too boring. Zeke confidently tells Jaken's servant, Liam Stone, that he is free to join his master. Jin angrily asks Zeke if he just found a way to insult him, and Zeke adds salt to his injury, saying yes. Jin angrily steps into the arena, and Liam follows him. The instructor urges Zeke to stay calm and wait for instructions before making a move. Deep down, Zeke is just glad that he is finally seeing Liam Stone again. Apparently, in his past life, Liam was known as the Mercenary King. In his past life, Liam didn't get the benefits that other nobles got because he was Jaken's distant relative. He begged to join the higher education of the academy, Valhalla, but in the end, he joined the Knight Order of a small nation called Banin. After the fall of Baron, he ended up becoming a mercenary. After so long as a mercenary, he became a Red Knight and started his own stone mercenaries. Liam united the three largest mercenary groups and was called the Mercenary King. Because of this, because the Empire hired the stone mercenaries, Liam had no choice but to enter the Continent Wars. And since Zeke was a northerner, he had no choice but to face Liam on the battlefield. However, Zeke believes that things can be different this time around. The instructor then starts the battle, and Jin comes rushing at Zeke, but he easily grabs his punch. Zeke stops his attack pretty easily while reminding him that he already suggested that he and his servant attack him at the same time. Jaken still thinks Zeke is messing around, and he throws a kick at him, but Zeke easily blocks the attack. It turns out that Zeke blocked the attack with his elbow, causing a shitload of pain in Jaken's leg. While he is still trying to pull himself together from this, Zeke comes after him. Jaken prepares to block his punch, but it turns out that it is just a feint. Realizing that he's already focused on the punch, Zeke kicks him in the leg. And while he is still trying to balance, Zeke punches him in the chest, causing him to cough up blood. Zeke looks like the devil reincarnate while telling Jaken that he alone is not enough, which is why he urged him to attack alongside his servant. Jen crashes to the ground in pain and immediately screams at Liam, telling him to kill Zeke. Liam, who looks older than his age and has an unimaginable reach, finally decides to join the fight. Zeke figures out that he is going to lose his advantage if he allows Liam to make his move first. Because of this, Zeke goes after him, and he activates the slash skill. This helps him to unleash a barrage of attacks at Liam, while also interfering with his sight. The students are shocked when they see this, since they have never seen anything like that before. Zeke is also aware that the instructor would be curious, since he is using a northern fist fighting technique in the Midlands that is supposed to be dominated by swordsmanship. However, Zeke is already feeling the blowback from using the skill, showing just how weak his body was when he was young. At the same time, he is worried about the giant dude standing in front of him. Liam made no move, even with all the punches that Zeke threw at him. Liam only stood where he was and took everything like a good old mama's boy. Since Liam is putting up his guard, Zeke figures out that he needs to take him out through this before his body finally reaches its limit. Zeke cooks up a powerful punch and throws at Liam. But just as the punch is about to land, Liam shocks him by dodging it. Zeke is absolutely stunned by this, because Liam is not supposed to be able to see ether with his eyes, which means Liam has some really incredible sense. Before Zeke knows it, Liam has grabbed him, but Zeke refuses to let himself get thrown around like that. He wiggles his way around and activates the heightened sense skill to grab onto Liam's neck like a snake. Zeke maintains a chokehold position in an attempt to starve Liam's brain of oxygen. He is pretty sure that no matter how strong Liam is, he is eventually going to pass out from this. However, Liam shocks him by putting pressure on him, causing him to cough up blood. Zeke cannot believe that he is going up against such a crazy dude. But at the same time, he is excited to see who is going to come out on top. The intense battle of endurance ensues between the two, leaving the students in a state of panic as they patiently wait to see who will surrender first. In the end, Liam passes out from the terrible position that Zeke left him, ultimately making Zeke the winner. Meanwhile, a crazy girl who is watching the fight is excited that Zeke won the battle because she believes that the battle between them would be spectacular. Later on, Decker visits Zeke in his room to check on him, and Zeke assures him that he is fine. Decker then asks Zeke if he can check his pulse, and Zeke immediately figures out that Decker just wants to check if he has awakened his aura. Zeke hesitates a bit before offering him his arm to check the supposed pulse that he wants to. Zeke is shocked when Decker starts his thing, and he is very thorough with it, which shows that he is a Blue Knight at least. Basically, imbuing someone else with aura is as difficult as it comes, but Decker is doing it pretty easily. Talking about knights, they're not all the same because they're all classified in accordance with their martial prowess and aura manipulation proficiency. The white swordsmen are basically at the novice level, and the yellow swordsman is slated for those who have awakened their aura and opened their danshin. Basically, all the trainees in the cradle become yellow swordsmen after the blessing rite. Those who are able to freely control their aura are immediately given the title of a knight. When talking about the purple knight, they are those who can reinforce their sword with aura, while the blue knight is for those who can manifest an aura blade. However, there is a realm where knights have basically gone past the human limit. And this was a realm that Liam and Zeke got to in their past lives. This is a realm that is called the Red Knight, but there is also the Black Knight. Even though there are few of them on the entire continent, because of how capable a Blue Knight is, Zeke starts to wonder how someone like Decker ended up being his attendant. Nonetheless, Zeke is confident that there is no way Decker can detect his ether because there are only 2 people in the entire world who can use it. After Decker is done checking with a serious voice, he asks Zeke if he is hiding anything from him. Zeke goes into defense and throws the question back at Decker before walking away, telling Decker that he is only messing around. Decker then asks Zeke why he has suddenly changed a lot, but Zeke tells him that the right question should be why he changed just now. Zeke lets Decker know that things are only about to change even more because things are going in their rightful places and he would like Decker and the rest to follow him. This hits Decker so hard that he immediately assures Zeke that he fully understands the situation. Decker then tells Zeke that he has prepared the training room that he asked for, and Zeke commends him for always working so hard. Deep down, Zeke is aware of the fact that someone actually put Decker in charge of monitoring him, which is why he is interested in keeping him close, so he can get information out of him instead. However, Zeke is left with the big question of who might have ordered Decker to keep an eye on him, but he's pretty sure that the person is not from his mother's side. Zeke assumes that the person is going to be one of his siblings. Later on, Zeke makes his way to the personal training room that Decker arranged for him, and Zeke is ultimately impressed by the high standards of everything. Before training, he decides to check out the system first. And after opening the status window, he realizes that his slash skill has become even stronger than before. Zeke figures out that the skill gets more effective the more he uses it. Since the skill was activated because of his actions, he figures out that he must have had it before. He wonders if a new skill will be added to the array of his skills if he just learned a new one. Suddenly, he realizes that he has not figured out the difference between a skill and a class skill since they get activated similarly. He continues checking through and notices that his draconian skill needs points to unlock. And to get the karma points that are needed, he needs to kill monsters. He doesn't think this is a problem because there are a bunch of monsters in the dungeons, but at the same time, he needs to be on the level of a purple knight to access the dungeons. On the other hand, Zeke is more concerned with why he regressed and what the system is because he has so little information. Nonetheless, he is ready to use the system as long as it helps him get stronger. Apparently, no matter which way it goes, there is one definite thing, and this is the fact that there are 2 known powers in this world: the aura of the knights and the mana of the mages. Knights reinforce their aura in the dungeons, while mages handle their mana through circles. These are basically 2 powers that oppose each other. So, if one awakens one, there is no way to awaken the other. However, Zeke was not fortunate enough to have awakened either. Because of this, he was abandoned by his family, which was why he met his master during his vagabond days. Zeke's master was the one who taught him a lot of things, but the most useful thing she taught him was healing and the use of the ether hull. In the end, he and his master were the only ones who could use ether in the world. 2 hours into the training, Zeke is already panting like a goat, and since he's exhausted already, he has no choice but to activate the healing skill and the vigor recovery skill. Apparently, healing is a rare skill that even Zeke had no idea existed before he met his master. But if he used it in front of people, they would treat him like an irregular. This is the main reason he hesitated in using it during his fight with Liam, forcing him to hurry back to his room so he could heal himself. Since he is done healing himself, Zeke returns to training and only stops when it is dinner time. 1 week after this, reports have started flying around about Zeke and the fact that he has become a totally different person. Some don't want to believe that his transformation is real, while some assume that he has dabbled in black magic. On the other hand, there are some who are praying that he gets even stronger so he can humble the strong bullies. Zeke's cousins, including the stern girl, Reyna Turon, are seen having a meal together in preparation for the swordsmanship duel that is coming up. One of them, Owen Zimmons, teases Lion about the need for him to eat, and this pisses the guy off. Owen tells Lion that he is only trying to be nice, but Lion's inferiority complex is obviously affecting his judgment. Leon gets mad and gets off his chair as if he wants to fight, but a stare from Reyna puts him in his place. The topic soon shifts to Zeke and what they're going to do about him. Ray admits that Zeke was impressive during the Pancrean, but she is pretty sure that Zeke is going to struggle when it comes to swordsmanship. Owen smiles, saying Zeke is going to be totally useless because he won't be able to properly hold up the sword. Leon buffers this point, saying Zeke is such a weakling because he had to get himself a customized sword since the basic ones were too heavy for him. Leon adds that Zeke only defeated him because of a stroke of luck. But Reina angrily cuts in, telling Lion that he doesn't have the right to be called a knight in the Draker household if he seriously believes that Zeke won by luck. After saying this, she angrily gets off the chair and walks out of the room to avoid surrounding herself with a bunch of fools. Moving on to the sword duels, the participants make use of real swords, which is why most incidents in the cradle happen during the said duel. This is also where the difference between the cadet skills is openly revealed. And a month after this, the Blessing Rite will commence. The Blessing Rite is an event where the Dreers awaken their aura. On the day of the duel, the instructor calls Zeke to come to the stage, and he confidently walks to the stage with his big sword on his shoulder. This immediately sparks grumbling among the students who believe that Zeke is acting pompously, which is why he is wielding a big sword. It turns out that Zeke will be going up against Ray, and Zeke is happy to have Ray as his opponent. Ray is surprised to see Zeke easily lifting the big sword, and this is when it dawns on her that Zeke is not the same boy that she used to know. A load of questions flood her mind on why Zeke might be confident, but it soon dawns on her that she's already getting intimidated by Zeke. Ray tries to burn off the fear that is creeping through her body since she was the one who challenged Zeke in the first place. At the same time, Zeke is also being careful because Ray was known as the Lightning Knight in her past life. Ray was one of the knights who was able to make a name for herself during the Continental Wars and was also noted to be one of the greatest of the next generation of Dreers. The reason why she was regarded this way is that she awakened her aura before she went through the Blessing Rite. Zeke figures out that Reina's aura should already be active years before the current time, but hasn't used it in the cradle because she claims she wants to improve her basics. Just then, the instructor declares the fight open, and Reina makes the first move. She swings her sword so hard that Zeke is forced to jump backwards to avoid getting skewered. Zeke has no choice but to admit that Ray is quite talented, but he still doesn't feel threatened. Ray continues coming hard at Zeke, and the spectators believe that she is toying with Zeke. They urge her to teach Zeke a lesson and stop messing around with him. But Owen is smart enough to know that Ray is not messing around. Even though Ray has heightened senses to locate and navigate through tight gaps, she still can't take advantage of this situation because no matter where she moves, Zeke's sword is always there to meet her. Ray starts realizing that Zeke is moving as if he is applauding her efforts. The moment Zeke does this, he opens another gap for her, making everything seem like a training duel, which is meant to teach her. Ray continues running around the arena, trying to get Zeke, and this has started straining with a clear indication of this from how she is sweating. Zeke finally sees how Reina was fighting when she was still in the cradle, and he is not impressed. Even though her sword appears to be honest, Zeke expected more from someone who is always so obsessed with their basics. At the same time, this fundamental is what is actually holding her back, and Zeke decides to help her break out of the tight shell that she has found herself in. Zeke then goes down on an extremely low stance, and Ray figures out that Zeke is trying to close the gap between them in just one leap. Ray is confident that she has what it takes to block Zeke, because she is incredibly fast, too. Ray is still riding on her confidence when Zeke suddenly reaches her, sending a wave of fear through her body. It takes an incredible amount of flexibility for her to dodge the strike. She jumps backward and concludes that she can still react to Zeke's strike as long as there is a bit of gap between them. Just then, Zeke does something shocking by using his sword to throw pebbles at her. The pebbles hit her on the face, causing Zeke to close down while she is still struggling with the pain. Ray opens her eyes to see Zeke breathing down on her neck with his sword. Ray realizes that she is done for, forcing her to resort to something extreme. In the blink of an eye, Ray knocks Zeke's sword away, and the students start celebrating that Ray has won. However, the instructor is left in awe because none of the cadets noticed what happened. Just as Zeke's attack closed down on Reina, she was forced to use a bit of aura, which was barely noticeable. Ray is the one who promised never to use aura until she got into the academy. But Zeke is able to force her into breaking that promise. Ray is also aware of what she did, and while she is still sulking over it, Zeke dashes over and punches her in the throat, causing her to cough up blood. She falls to her knees while holding her throat, and the students erupt in anger, condemning Zeke's decision to use the fist, even though they are in a swordsmanship duel. The students start saying all sorts of trash things about how Zeke is not worthy of being a knight because he abandoned his sword. Zeke doesn't really care about their outcries because he won in the end, which is what matters. Ray manages to get back on her feet, and Zeke asks her if she is willing to continue the fight. In her head, Ray is thinking about the whole scenario, and she wants to believe that Zeke was only able to strike her because she let her guard down. Suddenly, it dawns on her that she is only making up stupid excuses because if Zeke had a dagger in his hands and hit her with that instead, she would be dead meat. Because of this, Reina has no choice but to accept that she lost the battle. The students are left in shock and disappointment when they hear this because Zeke, who was known as trash just a couple of days ago, has managed to secure victory against one of the most talented children in the cradle. Meanwhile, the report of Zeke defeating Ray has gotten to his siblings, William and Abel. William is freaking out because he doesn't want to believe, but Abel urges him to calm his nerves. He asks when the blessing rite is, and William tells him that they have a month before the rites. Abel is pleased to hear this, and he decides that it is the right time to visit the family. William is shocked to hear this, and Abel reveals that Zeke has gotten his attention already, which is why he is interested in knowing what Zeke is going to awaken with. Zeke, on the other hand, returned to the training room after defeating Ray while the whole cradle is still in shock. And in no time, a month flew past. It is the day of the blessing, right? And Zeke still ended up training that very day. While sweating heavily, he wonders how he was able to attain the level of a red knight in his past life with such a shitty body. Zeke then opens the status window, and he realizes that he gained a bit of mastery in some of the skills. Some of them have moved from E rank to dank, and this will only continue to increase the more he trains. Zeke is pleased that he has been able to increase the mastery of the skill he gained during the duel, which is swift steps. Suddenly, he notices another presence close to him, and he figures out that it is Decker. He immediately asks Decker what he wants, and Decker informs him that they need to leave in 2 hours. Zeke acknowledges this, telling Decker to get everything ready because he is going to join him soon. Shortly afterward, Zeke arrives at the main Draker estate in a carriage. This is an estate that is located within the Duchy of Troy, even though the family's main residence is located in the heart of the continent. Nonetheless, the blessing ride is always held at the main estate where the legend of the Dragon Slayer started. Alongside Zeke are the other students who just graduated from the cradle, and the house is packed. In addition to the presence of the students, there are spectators hanging around the corridors. For the first time, Zeke is finally noticing that the spectators are all famous ladies and gentlemen, and he is pretty sure that his family has sent spies to keep an eye on him. Zeke believes that whoever the spy is, they're going to give up on their mission once they see him fail the awakening. Suddenly, he notices Abel among the spectators, and this riles Zeke up. Zeke and Abel end up staring down at each other, and the animosity is clear. However, Zeke manages to calm himself down because he has no chance against Abel as it is. He knows that in his past life, Abel would never have come to the blessing rite, and Zeke is worried that his actions might have changed the future. Since this is the case, Zeke decides to make the most of the opportunity. After all the preparations are out of the way, they declare the blessing wide open. One of the students, Aaron, is the first to be called out. He steps up and pushes his hand into the water and punctures his palm with a needle sitting below the water tank. This immediately gives off a crazy reaction, emitting a blue light. Basically, the rite is meant for those in the bloodline to awaken their sealed aura when it is time for them to leave the cradle. This is a fast method, unlike knights who awaken their aura after the age of 20. However, there are rare cases where some would awaken a trait of the Dragon Slayer, known as mana inhibition. The lights will ultimately turn red, which is a sign that they are going to be on the Yellow Knight's level at the very least. However, there are some who have even rivaled the Red and Black Knights by undergoing pure blood awakening. Among the rare cases is Reina, whose awakening turns the lights red, and the instructor immediately orders that they bring him the special gloves. Apparently, the special gloves are needed for everyone who undergoes the mana inhibition, or else they won't be able to live a regular life. Apparently, the Draker name is conferred to those who are able to prove that they are of pure blood descent. Along with this, they're going to be provided with immense support of the family and loads of benefits. After everyone has gone through the process, it is finally Zeke's turn to participate in the blessing rite, and they're all wondering what his awakening would be like. Zeke proceeds to the front where the statue is standing. The last time Zeke did this, he was extremely left in a state of shame. However, he believes that things are different this time around because he can heal and can even manipulate ether. In addition to all of the things he has endured, Zeke leaves his fate in the hands of the statue, hoping that he comes out with something tangible. Zeke pushes his hand into the water with excitement on his face, but the statue suddenly stops moving, which has never happened before. The crowd is left wondering what might be happening, and Abel, in particular, has his eyes peeled. Zeke slowly pulls his hand out of the water, looking totally disappointed because nothing changed. Zeke is pissed that he became very confident because Abel is present in the room. The crowd starts murmuring, talking about how trash Zeke is because of his right process. Even though he has the blood of the head of the family, Some waste no time assuming that he was only able to beat Ray because he used a trick. Zeke is also disappointed, but he lifts his spirit with the fact that there are other ways for him to get stronger without the awakening. Just as he is about to walk off the stage, he gets a message on the status window. The system apologizes, saying there was an error during the process, which is why the message got delayed. Zeke stands there confused, and the system informs him that it has found the missing part of the information, and the class information has been input using the system's authority. After revealing this, the system reveals that Zeke's talent has been identified as that of a healer. Just then, the system informs him that he has unlocked a class, and it is said to be a rare one. Zeke is left in disbelief when the lights in the room suddenly go up in red, signaling that it is a pure blood awakening. The crowd is left in awe as they cannot believe that Zeke is starting off from the very top. The system continues with the information that it is passing on to Zeke, letting him know that the terminal has been able to make a connection. Because of this, the ancient dragon's blessing, which is sealed within the user's soul, has been activated. Zeke's body starts glowing, and the system informs him that the talent of kin known as the fighter's blood has been awakened. In addition, the system lets him know that his awakened talents have been combined, and because he has a combination of rare talents, a new class has been created. Zeke watches in disbelief as the system informs him that he has been given a unique class called Immortal. Another shocking thing happens when the light around the statue turns golden, which is the first. However, they still counted the whole thing as a pure blood awakening because of the traces of red light that remained there. Zeke already knows that people are going to have their doubts, but at the same time, he is worried that everything might work against him if he tries to say anything. While the crowd is murmuring about what is going on, Abel steps in, asking them why they're all tense when they're supposed to be celebrating since they are blessed with 2 pure blood awakenings in one batch. The moment he says this, the crowd agrees with him, saying he is right. Abel then orders the instructor to get his brother his special gloves. And after putting them on, Zeke can see just how hefty the gloves are. Deep down, Zeke is not happy with the fact that he might be forced to receive help for his trash brother. After the conclusion of the rites, the host informs them that they are going to organize a party to celebrate. As expected, Zeke is not interested in the party and would rather burn himself out in a training room. He sneaks out of the hall to try to find a training room, but his brother appears behind him, calling his name. This shocks Zeke, who wasn't expecting Abel to quickly reach out to him. Abel asks him why he is wandering off when he should be celebrating his awakening, and Abel stretches his hand towards Zeke for a handshake. Zeke is conflicted on whether to take the handshake or not, because if he refuses, it will be pretty obvious that he hates his brother's ass. Because of this, he decides to play along. But just as he is about to take his hand, he remembers something annoying, and he takes back his hand. Abel is surprised to see this, and even though it is risky, Zeke just couldn't bring himself to shake Abel's hand. Abel decides not to take offense, and concludes that seeing his brother's face is enough for him. Abel taps Zeke on the shoulder, telling him that he is going to see him again. Deep down, Zeke is raging as he can't wait to truly meet Abel again. While everyone else is celebrating the awakening ceremony, Zeke has made his way to his room. He is confused about why he is doing so well since all pure blood awakenings usually have the mana inhibition ability. This is an ability that shows that one is in direct opposition to the dragons, the source of mana. Since most of the machines operate on mana, a pure blood has no choice but to use the special gloves provided by the house. Zeke has taken off his glove already, and he is not feeling anything, which is weird because if he were truly a pure blood, something weird would have occurred. Zeke then decides to open the status window, and this is when he realizes that things have changed for what they were before. Instead of mana inhibition, Zeke has mana reflection. Zeke then decides to sit down to properly study the whole thing. Apparently, the mana reflection is a skill that creates a distorted field to cancel all nearby mana. This is when it dawns on Zeke that mana reflection is actually counted as a skill, and the reason the lamps were fine was that it is not a passive skill. Zeke remembers that he was a healer before the rite, but he has somehow transitioned into a unique skill, an immortal. Just then, it dawned on him that all the graduates except Reina had regular awakenings with a blue aura. Even though his aura was red in the beginning, just like Reina's, it ended up turning into gold. He remembers the system telling him that the classification terminal lost critical information, and he figures out that the statue is the terminal. Apparently, it was after the system provided the required information that the night started emitting red light. It finally dawns on Zeke that the red light doesn't determine whether someone awakens or not. It is actually a determinant for the user's class. There is red for a rare class, and there is gold for a unique class. The statue is an ancient relic even before the time of Terracon himself. And since the concept of class doesn't exist these days, the statue was being used to check if the user has awakened or not. They have basically mislabeled the red light, shown as a sign of rare class, as a pure blood awakening. And they're so dumb that no family head has even realized this once. Zeke then realizes that he has karma points that he can use, which he probably gained during the whole blessing rite. He decides to use it, and he spends 10 points out of the 100 that he has on viewing what his draconian skill is. The system opens the sealed skills, which turned out to be Dragon Eyes, Might of the Dragon, and Devour. However, all these skills are still locked and cannot be used. The Might of the Dragon allows the user to make their enemies surrender by using their aura, and this requires 30 points to unlock. The Dragon Eyes, on the other hand, allows the user to view detailed information of an individual, and this requires 20 points to unlock. As for the Devour skill, it allows the user to eat and digest a lot. This skill costs 50 points to unlock, but the whole explanation leaves Zeke confused. He doesn't know what the Devour skill does by the prescription given or why it costs 50 points too. Since he's not ready to take a chance, he decides to get something that is straightforward instead. Zeke then spends 50 points to unlock both the Dragon Eyes and the Might of the Dragon. Because the Might of the Dragon appears to be too dangerous to use in an enclosed space, Zeke decides that he's going to try out the Dragon's Eyes instead. He activates the eyes, but doesn't see anything different, leaving him disappointed. However, he realizes that there is a big change when he walks to the window to see what is going on outside. There is a statue far away in the center of the garden. But thanks to the Dragon's Eyes, the statue looks like it is right in front of him. Zeke is still celebrating this when the skill asks him if he is willing to check detailed information. Zeke goes ahead with this, and he is blown away when he realizes that the eye has dissected everything that he needs to know. Suddenly, he feels exhausted, causing him to fall into his chair. It turns out that the draconian skills take too much energy, and Zeke believes that they are going to be useless to him if they are this exhausting to use. Suddenly, the healing and vigor recovery skill activates, shocking Zeke since he had no intention of using healing. He immediately goes through the system, and he is shocked to see that his class skills have all become passive abilities. For the healing factor ability, his body automatically repairs itself, and the moment Zeke sees this, he realizes just how broken the skill is. In the past, healing was considered overpowering, but it can't be spammed and its healing effects are limited. However, the healing factor is completely different because it is infinite. Excited and curious, Zeke decides that he needs to test out the skill. Zeke grabs a knife and cuts himself in the arm. Immediately, this happens. The healing factor kicks into play, and the arm is healed. Zeke doesn't want to believe his eyes because he has just stumbled upon a pile of gold. Zeke confidently declares that he's going to graduate from the academy, and this usually takes 5 years. Soon afterward, Zeke arrives at the Draker Academy, which is the dream of anyone who is aspiring to become a knight. The higher students in the academy have been trained to perfection, and they have little to no difference from adults. However, Zeke still sees them as children who are from the great families. Zeke is disappointed and disgusted with the fact that the whole family is rotten to the core. Basically, there are 3 great houses supporting the transcendent Draker family, and they're called the Great Families because of their influence. There is the Torin family, known for their strength. There is also the Zimmons, and they are known for their wisdom. Then there is Vark, and they are known for their gold. Zeke then makes his way to the high-class dormitory located in the Platinum Mansion. Zeke is happy to be a pureblood because of the advantages that come with it. The high-class dormitory is furnished with a training hall, a library, and various kinds of facilities which are only open to the highest-ranked students. Even those from the cradle can't just enter it easily. However, the purebloods are given the special privilege of a floor master. They have an entire floor known as the Platinum Floor to themselves, and as it stands, Zeke and Reina are the only purebloods among their mates. Upon entering the building, Zeke is welcomed by an assistant who tells him that he is going to escort him to his assigned floor. Zeke is surprised to see a bunch of students all lined up to welcome him, and he believes that this is too much. The attendant then tells him that Decker is waiting for him in his room. Upon entering, Zeke asks Decker what he wants, and he reveals that there is something he has to deliver for him. Decker hands him a pair of gloves that have been specially made for him, and it carries the Draker insignia on them. Zeke is happy that he now has new gloves, and he decides that getting a new sword would make a lot of sense too. Since the Duchy of Troy is located close to the mountains, it is abundant with good quality iron and excellent craftsmen. Decker offers to search for a decent craftsman to help. But Zeke tells him that there is no need for this because he already has one in mind. Since he is willing to meet the blacksmith in person, Zeke tells Decker to go ahead and set up an appointment for him. Zeke hands him the name of the blacksmith, Galleon Halbert, surprising Decker since this is the first time he will hear the name. Nonetheless, he promises to contact the blacksmith immediately. Before leaving, Decker reminds him that classes are starting the next day, and he urges Zeke to review the relevant documents before then. After Decker's departure, Zeke sits down to assess his situation, and he figures out that he's going to have a bulkload of freedom to do what he wants since he is on a platinum floor. Just then, he hears a knock on the door, and he urges whoever it is to come in. A maid then enters the room, telling Zeke that Reina has sent him a dinner invitation. Zeke is shocked to hear this, but because he is curious, he tells a maid to take him there. Zeke arrives at where Ray is waiting to see her goons standing all around her, and he is a bit disappointed at this. Ray welcomes Zeke, and after sensing his disappointment, her goons walk away so that they can have a private discussion. Ray then suggests that they discuss properly after they are done eating. While preparing to eat, Zeke is fully focused on how Ray is controlling her aura using her lower abdomen. Even though she is aiming higher, Zeke is disappointed that Ree's swordsmanship skill is stuck in the mud. Minutes later, the two have consumed a mountain of food and are finally ready to talk. Ray goes straight to the point, telling Zeke to accept the Tehran family support. Zeke counters her, reminding her that they are both purebloods. However, Reina tries to enlighten Zeke about the privileges that come with having a great family backing him. She mentions all of the sweet things that the family will provide, while also saying Abel himself has received support from his maternal family, the Simmons family. It turns out that Zeke, on the other hand, is not receiving any support from his maternal family, and Reina has no idea why this is. After saying everything she needs to say, she then tells Zeke with a stern voice to accept the Terran family support. Without thinking twice, Zeke basically says no. Just as Zeke is about to stand up to leave, Reina asks him why he doesn't want the Terran's family support. Zeke lets Ray know that she is getting everything wrong. He has no beef with the family, but he is rejecting the offer because he already has everything that he wants since he is a pure blood awakener. As he walks away, Zeke tells Ray that he is going to give him one piece of advice as gratitude for the meal. Zeke lets Reina know that her sword has too much strength behind it, and he is pretty sure that she is conscious of the men around her. Zeke then lets her know that her greatest strength is the fluidity that arises from having a flexible body. Zeke urges Reina to stop receiving attacks heat in with the aim of crushing her opponents with strength. Zeke says fluidity helps to open her opponent up so she can land a single delicate strike. Zeke assures her that if she is able to do this, she's going to grow stronger than she currently is. After saying everything he wants to, he leaves. Ray immediately bangs her hand on the table in annoyance while thinking about the herald of the family, which is strength. Ray is pissed because she is basically following her family's tradition. Suddenly, it dawns on her that Zeke might actually be right because she had been obsessed with becoming a person fit to carry the Tehran name. This is basically what has been subconsciously projected on the way she moves her sword. Ray is blown away by the fact that Zeke was able to see through this. She remembers that she was being praised as a genius when she was young and not one person gave her any real advice. However, Zeke has just broken through to her to tell her the truth that she has always been avoiding. Later on, Zeke realizes that he is pretty fine even though he was training all night, and this is thanks to the infinite stamina skill. This is a skill that takes away any form of fatigue quickly. In his past life, he suffered in the academy, but he is currently enjoying life as it comes. Zeke is forced to admit the basic truth that money and power rule everything. Zeke is walking through the school without disturbing anyone when Owen and his goons show up. Owen is the third son of the Simmons family, which is one of the 3 great families. Just like the others, Owen used to bully Zeke in his past life, but he used others as a proxy while making sure he maintained his own image. Owen then walks up to Zeke, asking him why he didn't reply to the dinner invitation he sent to him the night before. Zeke smiles before casually telling Owen that he is not obligated to reply to every letter that comes his way. This immediately crushes Owen's ego, forcing Owen's giant servant to interfere. Zeke is confused to see a dog running off his leash, and he asks him who he is. The dude acts all cool, but Zeke is not really up for his shenanigans, and he tells him that he is free to look cool in front of his master, but he urges him to keep in mind who he is speaking to. This vexes the guy, causing him to dash at Zeke, but Zeke dodges the attack. The dude finally introduces himself, saying he is Durbin Roswell, and he is known as the Mighty Durbin. Durbin tells Zeke that he is going to teach him some manners because of how he spoke rudely to Zeke. Zeke laughs when he hears his name and the fact that he even has a pseudonym. He makes fun of him, saying he is not a knight yet, but he already has a pseudonym. Zeke angrily dashes at Durbin, and before he can even react, Zeke sends him flying with a powerful punch. Durbin is buried in the ground from just a single punch, and Zeke asks the rest if there is any one of them who is willing to challenge him. Zeke urges Owen to pick one of his people to fight him, but Owen doesn't make a move. Owen simply tells Zeke that he is too full of himself, but Zeke just ignores him and walks along. It turns out that the Draker Academy is split into two classes. There's the regular class, where those with no talent are taught that they can do anything as long as they put in the effort. There's also a special class that are free to choose their subjects freely outside of basic subjects. The elites are usually gathered in this special class, and this is why Zeke excitedly joined the class. However, he is disappointed when he gets there to see that the people in the class are the same dudes from the cradle. He doesn't see the class as a special class, but as the cradle class. The instructor then informs the students that they have a special someone in their midst. This said person was the commander-in-chief during the Eastern Empire War some 20-some years ago. In addition, he was also the hero who stopped the Empire's invasion with their resourcefulness. And this said person is Dean Howard Draker. Howard shows up waving at the students who are all excited to see him because he is a war hero. He is worshipped because he is believed to be a war hero and tactical genius. However, Zeke knows the real truth behind everything. Apparently, he leaked information to the enemy just so he could survive. But this ends up throwing the enemy into chaos. Zeke sees him as nothing but a traitor who got lucky. In addition, he was also the one who made sure Zeke was kicked out of the academy in his past life. Because of this, Zeke lost the only place left for him, and he ended up wandering the Duchy of Troy. In the end, he got snatched up by slave traders and was sold off to the Southern Cartel. Remembering all of these, Zeke promises to punish Howard. After Howard is done addressing them, the instructor tells them to take their swords and head to the arena for the start of basic classes. They soon arrive at the indoor arena, and Zeke is utterly disappointed that the special class has to learn the basics of dragon slaying. In his past life, Zeke spent 2 years learning what would have taken others 2 months to learn just because he couldn't use aura. And to make it worse, he was always picked on by his regular bullies. The instructor soon shows up, and he introduces himself as Andre Draker, who will be teaching them dragon slaying basics. The students are all blown away when they see how young Andre is, but Zeke already knows him as the Rose Knight. In his past life, even though Andrew was not a pureblood, he was able to graduate early from the academy, and he graduated from Valhalla as a valedictorian. He is basically a once-in-a-century genius who was conferred with the Draker name. Andrew wastes no time asserting his dominance in the class when he tells them to stop making noise. Once the class is quiet, Andre begins the class, and he orders the students to draw their swords. Just then, he notices Zeke's big sword, and he questions him. Zeke casually tells Andre that the big sword suits him, and Andre tells him to step into the arena. Andre asks Zeke if he is aware of the fact that he is supposed to pick a sword that suits his body. Zeke was already expecting this to happen, which is why he drew out his sword in a peculiar manner. Zeke decides to make the most of the situation, telling Andre that he can actually beat him with the sword. Zeke believes that it would be much better if he just showed Andre what he can do instead of arguing with him. The moment the system notices that Andre is trying to intimidate Zeke, the system activates the indomitable mental defense to block him out. After thinking over it for a minute, Andre finally falls for Zeke's trap. He tells Zeke that if his blade manages to touch him, he will be exempted from not just the punishment for being rude, but he will also be exempted from the dragon slaying arts class. Andre then urges Zeke not to be scared because he has no plan to use aura against the cadet. Zeke is pleased to hear this because the reward for the duel is pretty sweet. In addition, Zeke is confident that he has what it takes to beat Andre since he knows his weakness. However, Zeke doesn't want to draw attention to himself since Abel will have spies on him. Zeke decides that he is just going to make sure he grazes Andre, then lose the match. Zeke then makes the first move, and he dashes toward Andre, but he easily blocks his attack. Zeke is not surprised because the least of this is expected of a Blue Knight. At the same time, it dawns on him that defeating Andre might not be as easy as he thought it would. Andre soon has Zeke on his knees, and the students waste no time glazing Andre talking about how he is on another level. Minutes later, Zeke is still trying, and he hasn't even gotten a breakthrough. Sometime later, Andre is already asking questions in his head. He can't believe that he is already sweating against a cadet. Even though he is suppressing his aura, he doesn't think a cadet should have the stamina to stand up to him. At this point, Andre is starting to believe that pure bloods are on another level. Zeke, on the other hand, knows about Andre's poor stamina, and since he's also suppressing his mana, Zeke knows that the fight is not easy for him. The aura is basically imbued in the day-to-day activity of a Draker Knight, which is why it is always maintained as if breathing. To put it simply, Andre is basically holding his breath while engaging in a battle with Zeke. Because Zeke is not pleased with the fact that Andre is going to lose to him just because he is suppressing his aura, he decides that he has to force him to use his aura. Zeke continues running after Andre, and he soon figures out that he needs something that would unconsciously force Andre to use aura. To do this, Zeke figures out that he needs an extreme situation, and Zeke activates the Swift Step skill. Andre sees this, and he is stunned because he doesn't expect a cadet to know such a skill. Zeke continues moving like a speedster, forcing Andre to act even faster. After exchanging sword strikes for a couple of minutes, Zeke gets the opportunity to appear right behind Andre, and he activates the critical strike skill. Realizing that he is about to be cut, Andrew unconsciously activates Chapter 1 of a dragon-slaying arts. Andrew uses the first verse of the chapter, Sky Slice, to send Zeke flying backwards, thus repelling his attack in the process. Zeke's blade gets cut from the clash, and even his body feels the impact of the strike from Andre. Without wasting time, the healing factor skill activates, but Zeke has achieved his aim, and he decides to collapse to properly sell the act. Medical staff immediately rushes over to check on Zeke, and Andre sheathes his sword before declaring that Zeke has been exempted from a class. Still annoyed from the just-concluded fight, Andre asks the other students if there is any other cadet who wishes to be exempt just like Zeke. However, the fight that the cadets just watched let them know that they have no chance whatsoever. Because of this, none of them emerges to challenge Andre, and he concludes that there is no one bold enough to die among them. Since he has established a level of fear in the cadets, he orders them to get into position for their class. Later in the infirmary, Zeke praises himself for putting up such a good performance. Even though he didn't get to graze Andre's clothes, he was able to get him to use the aura he said he wouldn't and even acknowledge his abilities. In the end, Andrew got disciplined while Zeke got himself some free time, which is a win-win situation. Zeke remembers the last attack that Andrew used, which is the most basic move of the dragon-slaying arts, Sky Slice. However, it had so much force behind it because it came from a Blue Knight. Nonetheless, Zeke believes that he still has what it takes to defeat a Blue Knight because he has the stamina and healing factor to keep going. However, Zeke is not ready to settle for the barest minimum because he is aiming for an unimaginable power that will not let him be subjected to anyone's command. Zeke is thinking about this when a redhead with a bottle of booze suddenly appears beside his bed. The dude calls Zeke Arthur's youngest son, and the sudden presence of the dude scares the hell out of Zeke. Zeke can't believe that he didn't even get to sense the dude, even though the strong stench of booze is all over him. At the same time, Zeke can't believe that the dude is casually addressing the patriarch, Arthur, like it is nothing. Zeke then asks the dude who he is, but the dude throws another question at him, asking him how he did what he did earlier. Zeke plays a fool, asking the dude what he meant by this. The dude sees through Zeke and reminds him that he was inflicted with an internal wound when fighting Andre, but it healed instantaneously. The moment the dude says this, fear creeps into Zeke's body because he can't believe that someone has caught on to the fact that he is using healing factor. The system senses the fear in his body and activates the indomitable mental defense to help out. This helps Zeke to calm down, and he concludes that there is no one in the academy who knows about healing. Because of this, Zeke continues to act like he doesn't know what the redhead is talking about. Realizing that Zeke is not ready to slip up, the dude suddenly attacks him with the aim of cutting off his head. However, Zeke is able to react to this, and he dodges the strike. He leaps off the bed, believing that the redhead is an assassin who has been sent to finish him off. Zeke is able to grab his sword, and he throws the bedsheet at the redhead to impair his vision. The redhead laughs when he sees this, admitting that Zeke has some trick up his sleeve. Since he is in danger, all of Zeke's senses have come to life, and the system activates the skills needed for his survival, like the precise stab skill. Zeke's senses are letting him know that failure to kill the redhead might actually result in his death. Zeke cuts through the sheet, aiming to catch the redhead by surprise. However, he is the one who was surprised as the dude easily catches his sword while complimenting his adaptability. The dude smiles at Zeke, saying he is operating just like a mercenary would, and this sends a bulkload of questions into Zeke's head to jump backwards, leaving his sword in the dude's hands while at the same time wondering who the guy is. It dawns on Zeke that the dude just mentioned the word mercenary, and this gets him asking himself if the dude knows anything about his past life. The dude continues messing with Zeke by throwing his sword to him, telling him that as a Draker, he is not supposed to abandon his sword. The dude then tells Zeke that he appears to be more suited to be a mercenary rather than a knight. Zeke heaves a sigh of relief when he hears that this is what the dude meant, not that he actually knows anything about him being a Draker. At the same time, Zeke senses something overwhelming, which he has not felt since he fought his master. Zeke admits that the dude would easily kill him if he wanted to because there is a considerable amount of skill gap between them. With this, Zeke figures out that the dude is at least a red knight. The dude then asks Zeke what he is doing with such a huge sword while also complimenting him. These brief words from the dude immediately tell Zeke that the guy might be stronger than he thought. Just then, the door opens and Andre enters. Andre is shocked when he sees the dude, but he quickly moves through the situation as he addresses the redhead as Garden Keeper Dexter. Zeke is shocked to hear that such a strong fellow is the Garden Keeper. The redhead then asks Andre how he knew he was at the infirmary, and Andre replies that he sensed him in the training room earlier. Before saying anything else, Andre tells Zeke that he is free to leave since he has already been treated. As he is about to leave the room, Dexter tells Zeke that he is free to come to the greenhouse if he is free because he is willing to teach him something useful. Just as usual, Zeke refuses the offer, causing Dexter to start lashing out, saying Zeke is just as arrogant as Arthur. The moment Zeke steps out of the room, Zeke figures out that Dexter is fooling himself by saying he is a garden keeper. Since he has the rank to call the current patriarch by his name without restriction, Zeke figures out that the dude is the person who had only one disciple, Andre. This person is none other than Duke Draker, the Gale Knight. Duke is one of the Black Knights who has the martial force to fight a whole kingdom by himself. After he suddenly disappeared, it got everyone worried. Zeke cannot believe that someone as strong as he is living a quiet life at the academy. Zeke then concludes that Andre must have come to the academy because of him too. Duke is said to be so strong that he basically obtained the Black Knight status just because he liked the color black. Without a doubt, Zeke can see that Duke is showing a strong interest in him, but he is not ready to receive teachings from him just because he showed slight interest. Zeke is aiming to learn Duke's secret move. If at all, he is going to learn something from him, and he plans to change Duke's interest into tenacity. Later on, Zeke finds himself in the magic class that is headed by the magic theory professor Phenol. While Finnan is busy stressing himself to teach the class, all of them, except Zeke, are asleep. Finnan soon asks a question, and since no one is showing interest, he is not expecting an answer. But to his surprise, Zeke contributes to what he just mentioned. Phenol almost dies of excitement, and he admits that it is his first time getting a question. Phenol excitedly explains everything that Zeke needs to know about mana transfer to him. The moment the class comes to an end, the others wake up and are ready to leave. They're not worried about the fact that they slept because they believe that learning about magic theory at a night academy is pretty useless. On the other hand, Zeke is impressed by how Finnan delivered his lecture because he made it pretty easy for him. Zeke stands up to leave, but Finnan runs after him, stopping him. Zeke then asks Finnan what the problem is, and Finnan expresses his excitement that he had a proper class thanks to him. Because of this, he tells Zeke that he is free to show up at his research lab anytime he wants if he has anything that he is curious about. Fenelon then reveals that he is a Deloa Magic University Scholarship alumnist, which means he knows a lot. Zeke is shocked when he hears this because an alum from the Magic University of Deloa is no small fry. This is basically the nation where magic originated. Zeke happily accepts the offer since it is going to be beneficial for him to get close to a mage. Since mages are critical thinkers, Zeke believes that they are better to have around rather than stuffy knights. Zeke is walking through the hall when he suddenly spots Duke lying on one of the public benches. He is shocked to see this, but this just tells him that Duke is less patient than he thought. Zeke has only avoided him for a week, and he has already shown up to see him. Zeke then asks Duke why he is there, and Duke asks him why he didn't come to the greenhouse. He reminds Zeke that he promised to teach him some useful things. Zeke acts cold again, saying he is not interested. This gets Duke even crazier as he asks Zeke why he is not interested. Zeke admits that Duke is talented, but he tells him that he is currently busy with individual training. It turns out that Duke is not a man who takes no for an answer. And before Zeke can even react, Duke has gotten to him. Duke knocks him out with a perfect hit to the back of his neck. And when he wakes up, he finds himself in the greenhouse. Zeke can't believe that Duke literally knocked him out just because he had been waiting for a week. Zeke is still looking around when Duke appears in front of him. Zeke asks him if he abducted him, and Duke admits this, saying he is interested in him, which is why he did. Zeke cannot believe that Duke is not even hiding his intentions, showing just how impatient he is. However, Zeke doesn't think it is time yet for this. Zeke activates swift steps in an attempt to run away, but Duke easily catches up to him. Zeke gives it another try, but the result remains the same. Zeke realizes that Duke is still treating the whole thing as a joke, and figures out that he needs something to get him serious. Zeke then asks Duke why he is interested in him, and Duke replies that he wants to know how Zeke's internal wound got healed instantaneously. This is when it finally dawns on Zeke why Duke is chasing him around. Zeke then decides to spice things up by telling Duke to make him answer the question if he is really curious about it. Just then, Duke vanishes, leaving Zeke to start wondering where the dude is. By the time Duke reappears, he comes back with Zeke's sword. He throws Zeke his sword, telling him that they need to make a bet so that things will be more interesting. Duke tells Zeke that he's going to get access to one wish if he can graze his clothes. However, he tells him that he is free to give up on the duel, but to do this, he's going to tell him everything that he has been hiding. 3 hours later, Zeke is still up and running, leaving Duke totally surprised and stunned. Duke has figured out that Zeke doesn't only have unimaginable stamina, but he appears to be invincible because his healing is limitless. On the other hand, Zeke knows that he can keep this up as long as he can, but at the same time, he won't be able to beat the bet. He then remembers the draconian skill, the might of the dragon. He hasn't used it before because he believes that it is going to be dangerous, but since he's going up against a Black Knight, he doesn't think it is going to be a problem. Zeke then switches things up, and when Duke sees how crazy he is staring down at him, he gets even more excited. Zeke dashes toward Duke with swift steps, but Duke blocks the attack. Nonetheless, Zeke continues attacking using the same pattern. Duke admits that he is fast, but believes that he is still nothing compared to Reina. However, Duke is impressed with his tenacity. Finally, Zeke decides that it is time he uses the might of the dragon skill. The moment he does this, Duke feels an overwhelming force around him that causes him to hesitate for a slight second. Zeke then makes use of this to unleash a cloud of dust to impair Duke's vision. Duke is not worried because he believes that it would also be hard for Zeke to find him in such a situation. Suddenly, Zeke appears behind Duke, and he activates the dragon's eyes to accurately see where he is going to strike. Zeke swings his sword with everything he has, but to his surprise, Duke suddenly vanishes. This is when it dawns on him that Duke just used his secret move, which is why he is known as the Gale Knight. Before Zeke knows it, Duke reappears very close to him, giving him no chance to react at all. By the time Zeke sees him, it is already too late. Zeke watches as Duke lands a devastating blow to his chest to knock him out, while telling him that he's going to consider the duel a draw. Zeke is sent flying into the distance. And when he finally gets stopped by a wall, the system tells him that his fatigue has surpassed the acceptable limit thanks to the excessive use of the draconian skill. The system lets him know that his consciousness would forcefully shut down to make sure that he is safe. Zeke tries to fight it, but ends up passing out nonetheless. When he finally wakes up, he finds himself in his room. He is shocked that he is back in his room, and he starts wondering if Duke was the one who brought him there. He sighed in disappointment because he almost won, but he expected nothing less since he is going up against a Black Knight. Zeke realized that he had done everything that he could possibly do, but it was still useless against Duke. Zeke wanted Duke to let down his guard by repeating the same attack over and over again, so he could make a gap using the might of the dragon. Zeke even used the dragon's eyes to try to strike him, but this wasn't enough. Zeke figures out that the move Duke toward the end of the fight is definitely his secret move. Even though he got knocked out because he used draconian skills excessively, Zeke is thankful that he got to see Duke's secret move. Zeke figures out that Andrew was able to rise to the position of a Red Knight thanks to this skill, even though he has really weak stamina. Even though Zeke didn't get to learn Duke's secret move, he is pleased that the whole battle was worth it. Zeke was able to see the might of the dragon power firsthand, and he figured out that knights below the black level would have surrendered immediately. Just then the system informs him that he has an unopened message. The system displays the message telling him that the Swift Step skill has been upgraded from Dank to C rank. In addition, his soul is said to have developed due to the demonstration of his strong will. Thanks to the development of his soul, his system functions have also been activated. The system then tells him that it is possible for him to activate the next function using karma points. A bunch of functions immediately appear on the screen. There is a mini map, and this is a function where the geographical terrain features can be seen in the form of a map. There's also the inventory function, which allows him to save items. Both of these functions require 20 points to unlock. However, there is a third function called the elementary level quest book. This includes tutorials and missions for the effective development of low-ranking administrators. Since Zeke has just 40 karma points to spend, he decides to check out the inventory first. Zeke unlocks the inventory function, and the system informs him that he can save selected items in the inventory. When retrieving stored items in the inventory, he can think of the name or shape of the item to get it out. In addition, the amount of space that the item takes up in the inventory depends on the item's weight and size. However, he has the option of increasing his inventory size by using karma points. Zeke immediately decides to try out the inventory skill, and he grabs his sword with the intention of storing it. He thinks of saving the sword, and it immediately vanishes into the storage space. Zeke checks out the status window and realizes that the sword took up 2 of the 28 boxes present in the inventory. Zeke finally understands what the instruction meant when it said that the space and item it takes are dependent on its weight and size. Since he only has to think of its name or shape to retrieve it, Zeke also tries this out. The moment he thinks of it, the sword reappears in his hand. Zeke is extremely pleased because he realizes that it is actually better than a subspace. It then dawns on Zeke that he is still a low-rank administrator, and he wonders what would actually happen when he reaches a higher rank. Since the points appear to be hard to come by, Zeke figures out that it would be stupid of him to use them recklessly. Just then, Decker knocks on the door, asking to come in. Zeke grants him permission to do so, and Decker tells him that there is a message for him. Decker says the sender said Zeke would already know it is once he says Garden Keeper Dexter. Zeke smiles as he receives the letter to read the contents. He realizes that the duel wasn't a total failure because Duke told him that he is free to come again if he ever wants to challenge him. Zeke finally realizes what Duke meant by calling the duel a draw. Zeke is basically pleased that he still has another chance to get what he wants from Duke. Decker then tells Zeke that he still has one more piece of information to give him. Decker reveals that the information is about the blacksmith that he mentioned. Decker says he's found the blacksmith, and Zeke excitedly asks him when the appointment is slated. Decker then reveals that there is a major problem because the blacksmith refused the appointment. Zeke is stunned to hear this, and Decker reveals the blacksmith says they are no longer making weapons. After the rejection from the blacksmith, Zeke decides to pay him a visit himself. As he enters the shop, he remembers the sword that Galleon forged for him. The sword was named Graham, and it was the best sword Zeke could ask for. The sword was potent enough to be able to replace the use of aura with ether. Now that Zeke has arrived at the said blacksmith shop, Zeke is disappointed to see him wallowing in his drunken state. Galleon is shocked when he sees a teenager entering his forge, and he urges Zeke to leave because it is not meant for children. Zeke is shocked to see Galleon in such a way because he never remembered Galleon being temperamental. This tells Zeke that there have been things that happened before he met him. Zeke decides to do things in his own way by grabbing a bucket of water and pouring it on Galleon to get him out of the trash state he is sitting in. Once Galleon is in a clear state of mind, Zeke walks up to him, asking him why he declined his offer for a job. Galleon is a bit confused about what is going on until he notices the insignia on Zeke's glove, clearly showing that he is a Draker. Galleon immediately bows his head, apologizing to Zeke for being such a rude person. Galleon then reveals that he is not currently taking orders because he can't even make what he wants for himself. So he doesn't see how he can make what others want. This is when it dawned on Zeke that even Galleon once went through depression. Zeke remembers that the time he met Galleon, he was already the greatest blacksmith on the continent, but he never told him what kind of life he led before that. Zeke figures out that Galleon obviously didn't want to share his past because of how embarrassing it was. However, Zeke doesn't think he can wait around for Galleon to come around. Just then, Zeke tells Galleon that he would like to see some of his works that he is calling a failure. Galleon leads Zeke to the back of the forge where there are a bunch of swords lying around. Zeke commends him, telling him that swords are looking good. Zeke grabs one of them, and Galleon urges him to be careful, saying the swords might be a failure, but at the same time, they are still sharp. Zeke checks out most of the swords and realizes that what Galleon is calling a failure is actually not, because they are of similar quality to what he was making when he was named the best blacksmith on the continent. However, Zeke goes ahead to use his draconian skill, the Dragon Eyes, to test out the sword, and this is when he sees where the problem is. Zeke then asks Galleon if there is a problem with his forge, and the question shocks Galleon. He is forced to ask Zeke how he knows this, but Zeke cuts him off, reminding him that he just asked him a question. Zeke mentions that he can see that Galleon is mixing several metals together to create a lighter and exquisite material, but it is suffering in durability. Zeke mentions that this happens because impurities remain even after the heat treatment process. Galleon is totally blown away by the fact that Zeke recognized his smelting method and even analyzed a major flaw in the process and its cause. This is when it dawns on Galleon that he might have just met the right person. Galleon then takes Zeke into his inner chambers to show him a design. Zeke is blown away to see such an exquisite design, which Galleon only revealed years later because it is a blueprint of a magic forge. Galleon mentions that he has nothing to hide from Zeke because he is the one who just saved him. Zeke is blown away, and he assures Galleon that with the forge, his smelting method would work without any hitch. Zeke then asks Galleon why he is not making the forge, even though he has the whole blueprint with him. Galleon mentions that the most important part of it all, the mana energy law blueprint remains, but the money the magic tower is asking for is 10,000 gold. Zeke hears this and almost passes out because a normal 4-member family's monthly expenses are 10 gold, but this is 1,000 times as much. Zeke finally realizes that it took Galleon 10 years to gather the money needed for the forge. Galleon admits that the money is crazy, but he lets Zeke know that if he ever helps him make the forge work since he is a Dreer, he's going to create anything he wants for him without any money or conditions attached, as long as he is alive. The offer sounds tempting to Zeke, but the whole thing is impossible for him because even as a pure blood, he can't possibly receive the support of 10,000 gold. At the same time, Zeke doesn't think he can give up on Graham, the Sword of Radiance. Zeke starts racking his brain on what to do, and suddenly it dawns on him that Galleon's only issue is mana energy loss. Zeke immediately accepts the request to help Galleon, and he takes the blueprint with him. Zeke tells Galleon that he has a mage that he can ask a favor from, and when he gets an answer, he is going to tell him. Zeke is about to turn back to tell him to stop drinking only to see Galleon on the ground bawling and thanking him for saving him. Upon arriving at the academy, Zeke started making his way to Fallon's office. On his way, he wonders why the Mage Tower is demanding such a high commission fee from Galleon since the structure itself appears to be simple. Zeke is still thinking about this when he suddenly notices something weird in the alley close to him. Inside the alley, Leon is bullying someone, and this immediately reminds Zeke of how Lion trashed him around. Zeke wants to ignore Lion until he hears Lion talk trash about him while he is busy bullying someone else. Leon believes that Zeke managed to beat him by luck and nothing else. Lion is having a blast until Zeke shows up on the scene. And with a stern voice, he tells Lion and his goons that he is giving them 3 seconds to bury their heads. Leon is shocked to hear this coming from Zeke, and he laughs at him, telling him that his arrogance has known no bounds since he got his pure blood awakening. Lion continues trash talking, but Zeke cuts him off and repeats his order, but this time with more pressure. The aura oozing out of Zeke's body almost cripples Lion and his team. Lion cannot fathom how it is that he is scared in Zeke's presence when some months ago he was basically crawling at his feet. Lion manages to break free from his fear, and he orders his guys to attack Zeke. They all rush at Zeke, but Zeke remains calm as he knocks them down one after the other. With his sleek moves, Zeke delivers devastating blows to knock them down as if they were amateurs on the street. In no time, Zeke has taken down the entire squad, leaving only Lion to witness the rampage. Fear creeps through Lion's body as he cannot believe that Zeke is the same person he knew before. After wiping the floor with his team, Zeke walks towards Lion, telling him that he doesn't need to be scared since he already knows what is coming next. Out of fear, Leon draws his sword, but this ends up being a big mistake on his path. The moment Zeke sees him drawing his sword, he reminds him of what he just did since they are not allowed to recklessly draw their swords in the training area. Zeke then replies appropriately, saying Leon is the first to draw his sword and to face the murderous intent coming from him. He also has no choice but to unshaft his sword. Zeke slowly pulls out his sword, saying he is only retaliating to protect his honor. Zeke makes it known that the battle will only end once one of them is dead, since the responsibility for this lies with both of them. Zeke turns to Liam Stone, who is being bullied, telling him that he is a witness to everything. With a scary voice and aura, Zeke tells Lion that they should continue their fight. Leon realizes that he is done for if he tries to fight Zeke, and he immediately drops his sword. He addresses Zeke in the most formal way he can, begging him to let him live. Leon urges Zeke to let him go, and laying on his knees reminds Zeke of how Lion treated him when he was in his position.